All right, let's do our best to break it down here. Because I'll say this video is not a Vancouver Canucks video. Technically speaking, it is not. Although I guess it kind of is. Never mind, it is. But I do think that even though by the time this video is going to be published, the Vancouver Canucks will be playing off against the New Jersey Devils, even though that will be the case, there still is a conversation worth having, because we can talk to the Detroit Red Wings fans. And then Canucks fans can trickle in and start watching and responding to this video after the game is done. Because today, I wanted to dive more into the Red Wings trade talks for former Vancouver Canuck and current Minnesota Wild defenseman Quinn Hughes. I saw a lot of Red Wings fans on my timeline in the comment section of our YouTube videos talking about Quinn Hughes and saying things like, man, why could the Wings not gone out there and get this done? Why could they not have made that trade? Say what you want about the trade package itself, but as we had highlighted in various tweets in yesterday's commentary, there was somewhat of a similar package that could be theorized that was similar to what the Minnesota Wild gave Vancouver to get Quinn Hughes. Essentially, it boiled down to a left-handed defenseman, a center, another prospect, and a first. Liam Öhgren, Zeev Buium, Marco Rossi, and a first. That's the key contributing factor here. That was the trade that we ended up seeing go down in real life. But ultimately, you could say that if you wanted to theorize a Detroit Red Wings trade proposal along the same lines, you probably could have done so. A guy like Marco Kasper probably could have been involved, and then a young defenseman going over to Vancouver along with the draft picks and maybe another prospect. A lot of folks in Detroit were saying, hey, why not trade Axel Sandin Pellikka? That guy plays similarly to Quinn Hughes, and right defense is generally more valued than left defense. But that is where the problem lies. You see, Vancouver ended up getting Zeev Buium in return in this trade. A guy who I'm probably going to go out there and say has a higher ceiling than Axel Sandin Pellikka. I do think that they're roughly in the same territory, but Buium is a total monster of a hockey player. And maybe by the time this video is uploaded, we would have already seen him do some amazing things in a Vancouver Canucks sweater. Axel Sandin Pellikka is a righty. Zeev Buium is a lefty. They are roughly the same size. Actually, no, they're exactly the same size. Oh my goodness, they are both 6 feet, 185. That is incredible. ASP kind of moves around the offensive zone like Quinn Hughes. Zeev Buium has a little bit more of an activation to his game that I think Quinn Hughes maybe doesn't utilize as much. But they're both very strong defensemen. But here's the thing. We had ourselves some word from Anthony DeMarco that, in a way, reveals exactly why a Detroit Red Wings trade to Vancouver for Quinn Hughes could not get done, and what kind of assets the Canucks were interested in more. DeMarco tweeted out this: according to some separate sources from both Minnesota and New Jersey, Vancouver specifically wanted a center and a left defenseman in return. Could Mishkov or Martone gotten it done for the Flyers? Maybe, but both players were non-starters for Philly. Now, we can ignore this part for now. Oh yeah, you can have untouchable prospects in a Quinn Hughes trade if you're Philadelphia. But with this in mind, it puts a lot of emphasis on the kinds of assets that Vancouver wanted, and it gives us the answers as to why the Red Wings could not have gotten it done. Case in point, Axel Sandin Pellikka is just the guy that Vancouver apparently would not have wanted. They didn't want right-handed guys on D, they wanted specifically left-handed guys. And the problem is right there. Because who do the Red Wings have that's a good, young, left-handed defenseman that could become great down the line? Probably the only guy that would even come close to matching a Zeev Buium or an ASP trade value is Simon Edvinsson, who is 6'6", 223, a left-handed guy, 22 years old. He's older than Zeev by 2 years, and he is more experienced than Zeev. In my personal opinion, I would say that Zeev Buium, I'd rather have him on my team than Simon Edvinsson, just because Zeev is so dynamic offensively and he has such a high ceiling. Ed has a high ceiling too, don't get me wrong. But because Edvinsson would have been the kind of player that Vancouver wanted in return, it just wouldn't have been possible for Detroit. Because you take a look at it right here, okay, yeah, you've got Axel Sandin Pellikka and Moritz Seider on the right side there. If you trade away Simon Edvinsson for Quinn Hughes, okay, sure, you are upgrading on defense. That is a good move. But you're not certain about it long term. At the very least, if you trade away Quinn Hughes for Axel Sandin Pellikka, you still have Mo Seider, even if Quinn Hughes decides to leave. You'll have Edvinsson Hughes for 2 seasons, and then Quinn will leave, and then you're stuck with Edvinsson Seider as your top pairing. You can do a lot worse than that. Maybe Albert Johansson continues to develop, he becomes okay, passable as a top 4 guy, and then you're chillin'. You don't have Hughes, you don't have ASP, but it's fine. You can still survive with this as your top pairing. But if you trade away Simon Edvinsson for Quinn Hughes, and then Hughes leaves anyway, you're stuck with Seider and ASP on your right side, and nobody really of significant value on the left. It holds back the Red Wings for an amount that is uncertain because you just don't know if Quinn is going to come back. The Minnesota Wild don't have these problems because, I don't know if you noticed, but Zeev Buium, he was already an afterthought in the Wild's defense pairings. He was playing third pairing minutes with this team to open things up on the year. Bogosian, Spurgeon, Middleton, Brock Faber, these guys were studs. It's a super strong defensive group in Minnesota already. And so getting rid of Zeev Buium, replacing him with Quinn Hughes, firstly, they're not worried about the long-term implications of acquiring the guy, but secondly, they had the spot to lose. Detroit, if they were going to go out there and make this trade, they would have wanted Axel Sandin Pellikka to go the other way because they can't afford to lose Simon Edvinsson. And for Vancouver, it's like, okay, well, why would you not want Axel Sandin Pellikka? Right-handed guys are more valued than left-handed guys, right? Well, that's the thing. Vancouver doesn't really need that. Think about who they're giving up. Okay, they're giving up Quinn Hughes, top left-handed defenseman in the world. I think that's very fair to say, right? He's the number 1 left-handed D in the entire league. But on the right side, you got Phil Hronek, who in his own right is a fairly decent top-pairing guy. Not the best, but he's a strong enough player to play first pair. And then you also have Tom Wielander, who is going to become really nice. You've got Mancini on the right side as well. I'd wager a bet and say that Vancouver was a lot more comfortable with their right side long-term than their left side. Yes, Elias Pettersson is fine. He's getting better, slowly. Marcus Pettersson, also here. Here for a while, too. He signed on for quite a bit. But based off the strength of the prospects that exist in the Canucks organization, from Hronek to Wielander to Mancini, Elias Pettersson, and now Zeev Buium, Buium is a very necessary piece on what would have been a left side in Vancouver that could have used some work, especially with no Quinn Hughes there. So this rumor popping up from DeMarco that, yeah, the Canucks wanted a center and a lefty specifically in return makes it a lot more difficult for a team like the Detroit Red Wings to step in there and make the transaction work. They just didn't have a left-handed defenseman that they could afford to lose, especially not knowing if Quinn Hughes would decide to stay with their team long-term. If they lose Edvinsson and Hughes, then it's like, okay, well, crap. We're stuck with Mo Seider as a number 1 D and Axel Sandin Pellikka, our second best Ds, on the second pair. We can't have both of them together. It's a tough scenario for a team that wanted to get it done, but ultimately lost out to a Minnesota Wild team that had the assets to spare and were willing to shell out those assets. So, with that in mind, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. How do you feel about this being the reason why the Red Wings could not trade for Quinn Hughes? How Simon Edvinsson was the guy that they could not get rid of, and Axel Sandin Pellikka was the guy that Vancouver just didn't want. Thoughts in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. 99, and bye.